Previously, Sarah shocked everyone at the billionaire's mansion when she stole the spotlight at the grand party. But what came after was even more dramatic. Secrets, forbidden love, and dangerous confrontations were about to change her life forever. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe for more emotional billionaire stories like this one. If you have ever been in a place or situation where people look down on you, but you surprise them all, then this story will resonate with you. Now let's dive in. After the lavish party, life inside Chief Duru's mansion appeared to return to normal, but Sarah's world had already shifted. The image of Steve, the handsome bachelor who had looked at her as though she were the only one in the crowd, lingered in her mind. She had thought that would be the end of it, a fleeting encounter, but 2 days later, the unexpected happened. A sleek black car drove through the tall iron gates of the mansion, and it was Steve stepping out, his tailored suit catching the sunlight. Madame Stella almost screamed in delight when she was told who was waiting in the living room. She quickly called her daughters, Andrea and Adele, upstairs. Girls, do you know who is here? Steve Jacobs himself. Hurry up, go and change. Wear something nice and look sharp, don't embarrass me, she urged them, clapping her hands like a drill sergeant. The girls rushed upstairs, and within minutes came down dressed in short silk gowns with expensive jewelry their father had brought from Dubai. Stella sprayed them with perfume, adjusted their hair, and positioned them like flowers in the sitting room before moving majestically to welcome Steve. My dear, you are welcome. What an honor to have you here, she gushed, asking him what he would like to take and trying to engage him in conversation. Chief Duru was out of the country on business, so Stella was queen of the house. She spoke about her daughter's brilliance, their time abroad, and their beauty, but Steve only nodded politely. His eyes kept drifting away, searching, and when Sarah walked in quietly with a tray to serve drinks, his face brightened slightly, though he quickly masked it. He smiled at her as she placed the tray on the table, and their eyes met briefly, a silent recognition that Stella missed but her daughters did not. Adele whispered to Andrea, "Why is he looking at that maid?" Andrea hissed, "Shut up, behave yourself, this is our chance." When Steve was leaving, Madame Stella made sure her girls saw him off to his car. She invited him over again and again, convinced he was falling for one of her daughters. Each time he came, she went overboard, sometimes even cooking herself, setting the dining table with imported cutlery, instructing Sarah to serve like a proper maid. Sarah would move quietly, laying plates, pouring drinks, but Steve always found a way to smile at her, a kind smile that warmed her heart and made her feel noticed for the first time in years. Sarah tried to avoid his eyes, terrified that Madame Stella would notice, but deep inside, a forbidden hope was building. One evening, after his third visit, Sarah found a small piece of paper tucked under one of the plates when she cleared the table. She almost dropped the plate in shock, but held it together. Later, in the kitchen, she unfolded it with trembling fingers. It was his number with a simple line written beneath. Call me. Her heart raced, fear and excitement mixing dangerously. That night she couldn't sleep, staring at the paper under her pillow until finally, after everyone slept, she sneaked to the corner of the servants' quarters and dialed his number with her small Nokia phone. Hello, his voice came warm, steady, and familiar. Sarah? She froze, unable to speak. Don't be afraid, he said softly. I just want to talk to you, just you. That was the beginning. They started talking in hushed whispers at night, Sarah always afraid someone would overhear. Steve was patient, never pressuring, only asking about her life, her family, her dreams. She told him things she had never told anyone. How she wanted to go to university but couldn't, how she worked like a slave but endured it for her siblings' sake. Sometimes she cried quietly while speaking, and he would listen until she calmed down. Soon Steve started visiting secretly. He would park not too far from the mansion and send her a message. Sarah would sneak out with her scarf tied and meet him at the gate or just down the road, her heart pounding every time. Their meetings were short, just minutes stolen from her harsh world, but they meant everything. He would buy her shawarma, suya, and chocolate, and they would sit in his car. She would eat and laugh like a normal girl, not a maid trapped in a billionaire's house. You deserve so much more than this, Sarah, he said one night, holding her hand gently. I don't want to keep watching you suffer in there. I want to take you out, give you a life where you're free. But inside the mansion, the cruelty did not stop. Madame Stella became harsher as the days went by, scolding Sarah for the smallest mistakes. Lazy girl, what do you even do here? You can't even dust a table properly, she snapped one morning, running her finger across a spotless glass and shaking her head. Despite spending years in London, the Duru daughters did not change. They would deliberately dirty the kitchen after Sarah had cleaned it, eat tiny portions of food on different plates until the sink filled up with dirty plates. The grandmother complained endlessly, lying that Sarah ignored her when she called, even saying she had seen her watching television instead of working, though Sarah had not touched the remote in years. Sarah endured it all silently, drawing strength only from her secret calls with Steve. One afternoon, while Sarah was serving at the dining table, Stella noticed Steve smiling kindly at her, and her instincts flared. Though she said nothing, her suspicion began to grow. She decided to test her theory by deliberately sending Sarah to serve Steve tea in the living room alone. When Sarah entered with the tray, Steve stood to help her, brushing her hand slightly as he took the cup, their eyes locking again. Madame Stella walked in at that moment, and though she didn't catch anything physical, the look on Steve's face confirmed her fears. From that day, Stella began watching Sarah closely, giving her harsher punishments, determined to crush her spirit. But each time Steve heard about it, he became more determined to get her out. He knew he had little time before things got out of hand. He started making plans quietly, speaking to a trusted lawyer and friend. His visits to the mansion continued, sometimes in secret, other times in the pretense of seeing Andrea and Adele while slipping meaningful glances toward Sarah. Madame Stella grew more desperate, pushing her daughters toward him, arranging small private dinners, hoping that he would pick one of her daughters, but his heart was already taken. One night after a secret meeting, Steve whispered to Sarah as he dropped her off near the mansion gate, "Hold on, Sarah. I'm going to get you out of here. Soon, very soon, I promise you." And so, a dangerous game began. Stella trying to tighten her grip on her daughter's future, Sarah sneaking out for moments of freedom, and Steve weaving a plan that would change everything. The secret meetings continued, and though Sarah tried her best to stay unnoticed, the air in the mansion was changing. Madame Stella's eyes were sharp, and her instincts sharper. She had lived long enough to know when a man's attention was drifting, and no matter how she tried to convince herself, she could not deny it. Steve was coming to her house for another reason. One Saturday afternoon, Steve arrived unannounced. Stella, delighted as always, ran to the door herself, calling her daughters, Andrea, Adele. "Steve is here. Hurry up, go and wear something nice and come downstairs now." She welcomed him warmly, offering wine and talking endlessly about the family's status. But Steve was distracted. He asked casually, "Where is Sarah?" "I didn't see her when I came in." Stella froze. For a second, her smile faltered before she recovered, forcing a laugh. "Ah, you mean the maid? Don't worry about her, she's busy somewhere. Let's talk about my daughters." She waved it off quickly, but in her heart, she knew the truth was staring her in the face. That evening, after Steve left, she stormed into the kitchen, where Sarah was washing the dishes. "So, this is what you've been doing, eh? You want to snatch a man meant for my daughters? You think I don't see the way he looks at you? You worthless girl from the village. Is this how you repay me for keeping you in this house?" She slapped Sarah so hard that the girl fell to the ground, her cheek burning. Tears stung her eyes, but she said nothing, afraid that answering back would only make it worse. Stella spat on the floor beside her. "If I ever catch you looking at him again, you will regret the day you were born." But it was too late. Steve and Sarah were too deep. A week later, Steve called Sarah in the middle of the night. His voice was urgent. "Sarah, listen to me. Your madam suspects us. I can feel it. I don't want you to stay there one more month. I've spoken to a lawyer and a house agent. Everything will be ready soon. I want to get you out of there as soon as possible. Will you trust me?" Sarah's heart raced. "Steve, if Madame Stella finds out, she will kill me," she whispered, terrified. He replied, "She won't touch you again, I promise. Just give me a little more time, I'll come for you." But fate moved faster than Steve's plans. One evening, Sarah sneaked out to meet him at the gate. They only stood there for a few minutes, talking softly under the streetlight. Steve reached for her hand, smiling. "Soon, Sarah. Soon this will all be behind you." Neither of them noticed that Andrea had been watching from the upstairs balcony. The next morning, all hell broke loose. Stella dragged Sarah into the sitting room by her arm, her daughters standing behind her with folded arms, their faces filled with triumph. "So it's true," Stella screamed, her eyes wild. "You shameless thing. You've been sneaking out at night to meet Steve? A man of class and pedigree. And you think you will throw away my daughters for a village girl like you? Over my dead body." She slapped her again twice until Sarah's lip bled. Sarah cried out, "Madam, please, I didn't mean." But Stella cut her off. "Shut up. You planned this. You used your village charm on him." She took Sarah's small phone and locked her in the storeroom that night, without food, muttering that she would deal with her in a way she would never forget. But Steve came the next morning, when he could not reach Sarah throughout the night. He stormed into the mansion unannounced, his face grim. Stella, surprised, tried to gather herself. "Ah, Steve, my son, what a pleasant surprise, the girls are upstairs." But Steve raised his hand, his tone cold. "Madam Stella, please don't insult me. I am not here for your daughters. I am here for Sarah." The silence that followed was thunderous. Stella's smile vanished. What did you just say?" she stammered. Steve's voice grew firmer, his eyes blazing. "I said I love Sarah. She is the one I want, the one I came here for all along. I know the way you've treated her. I know what she has suffered in this house, but it ends today. She is coming with me." "You lie!" Stella screamed, her chest heaving. "You lie! How can you choose a maid over my daughters? Do you know who they are? Do you know who we are? This is an insult. A disgrace. No, you cannot do that." By now, Sarah had been brought out, her face swollen from the night before. She stood trembling, tears running down her cheeks. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Steve walked over to her, gently wiping her tears with his handkerchief. "Sarah, come with me," he said softly. "You don't belong here anymore." Stella rushed forward, blocking the door, screaming, "Over my dead body. You will never take her from this house. Never." At that moment, the front door opened and Chief Duru himself walked in, returning unexpectedly from his trip. He stopped, shocked at the scene before him, his wife shouting, Sarah crying, Steve standing protectively by her side. "What is going on here?" he demanded, his deep voice filling the room. Stella pointed at Sarah like a madwoman. "Ask her. Ask this witch what she has done. She wants to destroy our family. She has bewitched Steve." But Steve cut her off. "Chief Duru, with all due respect, your wife has been cruel to Sarah for years. I've seen enough. I love her, and I will not stand by and watch her being treated like this anymore. I want to take her away and marry her, with or without your blessing." The room fell silent. Chief Duru stared at Steve, then at Sarah, then at his wife whose face was twisted with fury. Finally, he sighed heavily, shaking his head. "Stella, enough is enough. You've gone too far. Sarah has been in this house since she was a child. If this young man wants her, let him take her. At least she will finally have peace." Stella let out a wail, collapsing onto the sofa, clutching her chest. "No, no, not after all I have done for this family, not after sending my daughters abroad. This cannot happen." But it was too late. Steve held Sarah's hand firmly, leading her out of the mansion while she looked back one last time at the house that had been her prison. As the gates closed behind them, Sarah felt the heavy chains of her past fall away. For the first time in her life, she breathed freely. Steve looked at her and said, "You're safe now, Sarah. You're safe." And though her heart still trembled with fear, a spark of hope burned bright within her. And so, Sarah finally walked out of the mansion that had been her cage for years. But was this truly the end of her struggles, or only the beginning of a new battle? Tell me, if you were in Sarah's shoes, would you have stayed and fought, or walked away too? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, because part 3 is coming, and the storm has only just begun.